Alright guys, so as you can see, here's our contact information at the bottom of the screen if you do need to get in touch with us for any reason. Here's our brief agenda for today. We're really just going to go ahead and do a quick introduction to WrapTrack, see what the flow feels like for you guys, talk a little bit about the differences between WrapTrack and Wonders, also talk about how we would like you to kind of quote-unquote test your data or look at sort of the data that was mapped over from Wonders to WrapTrack. So it's a simple process, and we'll walk through the details of that and also talk about the feedback timeline that we were thinking of. We'll also show some screenshots and get into the live demo of the system so that you guys can get a good feel for what it's like to enter this data. All right, system requirements. You will want to have as much of an updated system as possible. Obviously, your operating system would ideally be Windows 7, but if you don't have the most up-to-date operating system, the more ideal thing would be to have the most up-to-date internet browser. You can certainly use one of these options here in the list, but we really recommend Google Chrome. In terms of visually how it looks, it enhances the experience in WrapTrack, and visually is just sort of the layout flows like the programmers were intending it to do so. If you need to download that for whatever reason, we've got a link down here at the bottom. And then finally, to draw your attention to this note at the bottom as well, what you want to make sure is that your pop-up blockers are disabled when you go in, because that's going to be extremely important, as you'll see when we're in the demo, that a lot of screens pop up into different windows, and you want to make sure that you'll be able to visually see them all. So finally, safe sender list. We want to make sure that you add these email addresses to the safe sender list. Some of them may already be on there, for example, RapEval, that's us at University of Washington. Okay. So basically, we have our Wiki4, our TOM, and then our new Wi-Fi-EZ in WrapTrack. You know, I should have kind of looked up some of this information, and I don't have it in my head at the moment. Can someone from KTown just remind me, do you guys use the Wi-Fi and the TOM, or just the Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi only.
Wi-Fi only, okay.
Right now, we're just using the Wi-Fi. We have a TOM license.
Okay, is that promotion partnership? Was that Ocean Partnership only uses the Wi-Fi as well?
We currently use both.
Okay, Wi-Fi and thank you. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so we'll focus a little bit on all of those things, probably highlighting the Wi-Fi a little bit more since everyone on the phone uses that. However, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Wi-Fi-EZ or possibly using that instead of the Wi-Fi-4, you can always, again, contact us here at RapEval, and we'll let you know for the steps to take. The process is very similar in terms of the licensing, and you would just kind of go onto the website and complete a license agreement. The payment amount is the same, so that does not change from the Wi-Fi-4 to Wi-Fi-EZ. And as you can see, it's just a brief self-report version of the Wi-Fi-4. So we can talk in more detail about that later. Okay. So I just want to talk about WrapTMS for a second. Reason being because WrapTrack is on the WrapTMS platform. Now, do folks have you heard about WrapTMS before?
No, we haven't.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about it because it doesn't seem like a lot of folks know what that is about. Basically, WrapTMS, and you can see here, is really designed to capture the entire wraparound process. So many more pieces than what WrapTrack does. WrapTrack is just the identical but yet better version of Wonders, where you're really collecting that fidelity data and creating reports from that, obviously, as well. But WrapTMS captures all of these other pieces. So plan of care, family story, family satisfaction, other outcomes. You can track meeting notes, family history, it's really just comprehensive of the entire team process versus just that fidelity piece. And obviously, you can see that it's listed here, however, in the types of things that WrapTMS does, because WrapTMS and WrapTrack can be linked together. They're built, like I said, on that same platform, and they're sort of like half siblings. They're not. They share a lot of commonalities, but they don't do the exact same thing. And the other piece to WrapTMS is that it's actually an additional fee, and it can work with your current management information system if you have something that you're using. There's this interoperability to the system. However, it might be something that groups might want to use if they don't have a management information system, or you can just replace it entirely with this. It's up to you. But if folks are interested in learning a little bit about this particular type of management information system, just let me know, and I can share. There's a link that we have to a webinar where the developers, Kelly Hyde and Eric Bruns, have gone through and done an actual demo of WrapTMS. So that's really helpful. So let me know about that. And additionally, if you'd like to possibly experience WrapTMS and get a feel for it, you can sign up for a free 30-day demo as well. So we can get you connected in that way. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about WrapTrack only at this point. So WrapTrack has had a little bit of a facelift. Obviously, Wonders is gone. We're no longer using that, and WrapTrack has taken place. And in the time that we've been doing these trainings, we've also discovered that our rapinfo.org page had to have a little facelift as well. So currently, this is our placeholder for it. This is what it looks like, and you can go on here and just click on this symbol to log into WrapTrack, or go in and log into the URL that I'll give you on the next slide. A couple of other things to point out on this, though, is that if you are in need of getting to the WRT page or the WRT website, and typically in the past you would click on the little link or image that looks like this. Now all you have to do is just kind of copy this URL at the bottom and put it into your web browser, and that'll get you to that section where it talks about collaboration, training, the training materials. So if you need to access that website, again, it's right here at the bottom. Okay. So here's that URL, again, that you could just use this to get to WrapTrack. And again, you can see it's WrapTMS listed throughout some of this information because they share the same platform. But when you're logging in here, you're actually going to go to WrapTrack. So I just want to make sure people know that. This is where you're going to use your old Wonders username and password. So please remember that when you log in for the first time. You want to find that Wonders username and password, and you're going to enter that in here. If you're logging in and you've forgotten your password for whatever reason, as you get more familiar with the system, 3 weeks from now, if you've forgotten it, you can click on this little link below that says Forgot Password, and one of those no reply email addresses will send you what your password is. So this information is really important because passwords are really set up differently now in this system. So the old Wonders passwords that you guys might have had, where it could have been something as simple as like WrapTeam123 or something like that, is not going to work for WrapTrack. So you will be prompted to change your password because this system is now HIPAA compliant. So you can see some of the guidelines here. It's going to have to be between 8 to 16 characters, have at least one letter, one number, one special character, as well as your username will have to be 6 characters. So if it's something like, your initials and a number, you're going to be prompted to change that as well. A couple of things to note about this. When you log in for the first time using your Wonders old login and password, you may be able to get in right away and start using the system, and it won't prompt you to change it for 60 days. However, you may be somebody that has a password that's not going to be capable enough to allow you to move forward, and you're going to have to update it right away. When you do update at any point, whether it be the very first time, the third time, whatever it is, this is up to you now to manage. Your supervisor won't know your password. We won't know your password at University of Washington. It's really up to the individual now at this point to manage your own passwords. So that's going to be important because you're going to have to change these, as it says, every 60 days now. So it's the security up on here on this system is really like, if you're, using a bank password or something like that, or, what have you, where you have to sort of maintain them a little bit more frequently than we used to do in Wonders, where we keep a password for years and, 5 people would use it or something like that. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through. That's also important because if you ever have an issue in the system or need help getting through something, and you email me or you email April, you're going to need to make sure to include not just hi, I'm June from so and so. You need to make sure to include your login and password as well. Otherwise, we won't be able to log into the system to see what's wrong. So just things to remember about passwords because it is a bit of a different thing. Additionally, you will have a history of your passwords kept, at least 10 passwords. So you have to kind of keep using new passwords. That's another reason why it might be helpful to document them, so you know which ones you've used in the past. You can change your password whenever you like. That's entirely up to you, but you may just want to wait till the system prompts you. If you log invalidly 5 times in 10 minutes, you will become a quote-unquote disabled user. And you will need to let April or I know. Just email WrapEval if that's the easiest and say, I tried to log in, I became a disabled user, can you please enable me again? And the other thing I want to draw your attention to is this additional bullet below where it talks about periods of inactivity. And I'll show you where this is when we go into the site actually. But you can specify how long you want to be inactive in the system before it logs you out. It could be 15 minutes to 60 minutes, and there are increments in between there. And this, again, is not how many minutes you're in the system using it, it's how many minutes you've been inactive. So stepped away from your computer, what have you. So that's something that you can actually now change and adjust. All right, questions about passwords, anybody? Great. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these permissions slides, but I do want to let folks know that, obviously in Wonders we had this very simple level system, 1 through 5. It was structured and strict, and there was no wiggle room for adjusting what, a level 4 person could do. A level 4 person can only do data entry. So it's up to you and your community to determine what made sense for each user. In WrapTrack, there's a lot more flexibility. You can actually customize, as you see down below here, what you'd like these different roles to, what permissions you'd like them to have. For example, April and I are going to be at the design administrators, so we do have access to data and can pull reports. However, we do that through our own login. We no longer log in as you guys. So again, I'll just reiterate, if you have an issue or you need us to do something with your particular login, you have to share that password. Finally, you can see here, I want to draw your attention to the configuration admin. It says / jurisdictional admin, but what we've been discovering in the last couple of days is that really the person who was level 2 in Wonders, we really want to identify that individual. So if you know who you are, email me after this and say, I was the level 2 person in Wonders, or if you know who the level 2 person in Wonders is. And we really need to make sure that you're the configuration admin. We don't necessarily want you to be the jurisdictional admin because that's actually one step below, and this slide should be updated. So it says configuration admin, then jurisdictional admin. So we really want to make sure that we get you updated to the configuration admin. So, with that information, like I said, please contact me afterward and let me know so that we can get you set up. Now, one thing to reiterate, in Wonders, however your site was set up with these particular configurations in terms of who was in what level, that will have transferred over to WrapTrack. These things will just be called different names. So whatever your permissions were that you had for a level 4, for example, if you had someone only doing data entry, their role would be called something different, but their permissions would remain the same. So that's something to note. If you feel like you want to change it, if you want to make sure that, this level called supervisory admin has the same exact permissions as the program admin, not sure if you'd want to do that for any reason, but if you did, we could make that happen because, like I said, these types of things are very customizable in WrapTrack. So if folks have questions or concerns about how their sites are set up or the permissions that each role has, please let me know, and what we can do is jump on another phone call if there are concerns and just walk through it together. It's not a problem. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this slide either, but this is an example or two of sort of some ways that certain people might want to configure their communities. So you see that we're always going to be at the top of that list. But additionally, you could have your statewide administrator might be that configuration role, your evaluator head might be the jurisdictional admin, and then you might have your data entry and supervisor folks or facilitator folks in some of those other roles. Same thing over here, you might just have one person sort of in these administrative roles while you have data entry, other folks in other lower permissions levels. So that's up to you. Let's go through some screenshots. Do you have any questions, though, before we get to the screenshots? All right. So this is your home page. This is what it looks like when you actually log into WrapTrack, and you can see up here WrapTrack is now visible. So this lets you know that you're in the portion of TMS that has WrapTrack. Also at the top here, you will note that this is the individual who's logged in. Their organization name is right next to them. You can update your password here if you have access to that or want to change that more frequently than every 60 days. And user settings is where you're going to update your email address, for example, or adjust those periods of inactivity if you want to adjust the time frame for that. A couple other things to note here is this dashboard, and this dashboard is really like your home page. So, someone can, Heather wanted her home page to have youth records first and links over here, and somebody else wanted to do it the other way or put it down here. To do that, each user can manipulate their dashboard or their home page to make sense to them. But honestly, you're really just going to use your youth records and your links. Those are really the two boxes out of these three that are going to be applicable to WrapTrack. My reminders is actually connected to WrapTMS, and we couldn't move it because it has to be there for WrapTMS. So what you can do is actually just close out of it with this little X. Easy enough. Okay, I want to draw your attention to the menu button, highlighted in red. So when you click on the menu button, it really can help you navigate through this. So there we go. Click on it, drops down, and you can see there's this date time stamp. Additionally, you can get back to your home page or your dashboard, which is where we just were. The enrollment is really where you're going to put new youth records in. So, once you get into the system, you've checked your data, sort of spot checked your data, you would go to this enrollment tab to start adding new youth. We'll talk about that. You can also manage youth records by clicking here as well. And then reports and exports would be the third tab. And then finally, the fourth tab here is the admin tab, and this is really going to be appropriate to those folks that are the jurisdictional admin or your configuration admin, which is at the very top for your community. So others are not going to have this admin tab. All right, I don't want to spend a ton of time here on these slides because I do want to show you what they look like when we log into the site. But on the left-hand side, you can see that this is a youth record. So, you have a youth tab and an assessment tab. Within the youth tab, you have your demographics and a WrapTrack tab, and we'll explain what is in this information and how you fill in these fields in a second. But I just want to draw your attention to this enrollment button, because one thing important to note is, and as you can see here at the bottom right-hand part of your screen, when you click on the enrollment button, this additional pop-up box will show up. And again, here's why you need to have pop-up blocks disabled, because you need to make sure that these windows are going to show up on your browser. So essentially, when you first get a new youth record into the system, you'll note that this youth will say status pending here. It will only have this line. I don't know if folks can see that, but it will only say pending. What you'll need to do is when this record is created, you'll need to enrollment and add enrollment status and make the youth enrolled. So that's just one thing that you'll want to note, because without doing that, your youth that are pending will not show up in your report. So you will need to make sure that all youth are enrolled. And it really should be a process as simple as you're adding a new youth, you're completing the information that's in their demographics, and then you're immediately enrolling them. It should be a back-to-back process. Okay, we'll talk about that more as we get in there. Data entry. Not too different than what was in Wonders. However, visually we like it a little bit better. You can tell that here is how we access the data entry tab. So you went to assessments, and then either you can go in and edit a current form, or you can click add and open up another form and start entering data. Again, this will probably be a little bit more clear when we're in the demo, so I'm trying to move us along to get there. But one thing I do want to point out, not everybody will probably have access to be able to edit forms or delete forms. So whatever your access level was in Wonders, again, that's mimicked now in WrapTrack. Your role is called something else, but you have the same permissions currently. And if your configuration admin decides that it might be appropriate for those folks who maybe only do data entry, if it seems appropriate to now give them the ability to edit forms, then you can go in and do that. That configuration admin has the ability to make that person available to edit forms. So again, one of those features that's nice in terms of customizing for each group. Okay. With your reports, nothing too major to report here in terms of differences. Some of the actual reports have been separated out a little bit. You can see that our demographics and school information and community stuff have all been separated out a little. But also some reports have been combined. For example, the fidelity information, the overall scores, principal scores, and phase scores are now all in one report, as well as strengths and areas for improvement. So that's why the total number of reports is less than what was in Wonders, but all of this data is in here. This is just an example of a report I pulled up, and I wanted to scroll down to the graph to just show you that visually we like the way the graphs look a little bit more in this system, but in terms of the way that the reports flow, they are roughly going to be mimicking what was in Wonders. So nothing too scary to note there. And then the exporting feature is different. It's a different way to report or to pull that data. Originally in Wonders, it mimicked what you did for when you pulled the report. So for those of you who do the data reporting and exporting, you might remember that that you'd put in all your qualifying information, and it was almost identical for reports and exports. But obviously, you would get a final result that would be different. Exports now look very different, and I don't want to dwell on this screenshot. It's very small, but it also does generate into Excel, and it looks a little bit cleaner than it. We're really excited about that. Tom will touch on this a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time since Tom doesn't use the Tom. But essentially, same thing. If you click on the Assessments tab and click Add, Ocean Partnership, because you do use the Tom, when you click on Add, you'll see a list of options that will have the WIFI and the Tom there. Obviously, KTown only see the WIFI. And then the Tom form sort of looks like this. The big difference here with the Tom form is that it's on one page. It is in separate parts, which we found easier to navigate versus having to worry about is the page going to time out before you get to the bottom of it and hit save. So this is a nice new look for it. Okay. Tom reports. roughly look the same as well. Again, some have been combined, so the total number of reports may look different, but in terms of what is in the reports, it remains the same. However, all the national means and things have been updated, so we're super excited about that information and any errors that we were noting in Wonder 6. So, reports are much improved, and visually, again, not a lot of changes that you'll note. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up the demo. Let's pull over my screen here. Now, do folks have questions at this point before we get into the demo? Great. Okay. All right. So I'm going to log in using a test site that we've been playing around with. Brad Pitt is our user here. Okay. So you can see that for this particular group, we manipulated this quite a bit. We only kept the youth records. You're more than welcome to do the same thing if you don't feel like the quick links would be a helpful thing. However, folks will have the ability to really manipulate, like I said, this dashboard. So for example, let's just say that I was in here and I was playing around and I was clicking on these, which I'll do here in a second, show you sort of what these buttons do. They expand or, shrink this area. Let's say I accidentally clicked on this X. And I'm like, oh no, where did everything go? Click on Add Item, and you can just go right back here and you can see here's where those were my quick links record. So if I just select that, it'll pull it right back up. Although that's strange, it does look a little bit different right now. Okay, well typically that's worked in the past. I'm not sure exactly why it's not at the moment. Yeah, see our quick links come back up. So. All right, well, we'll just kind of continue to navigate without that there. But if you did want to use your youth records, which would have been listed here in terms of navigating through them and being able to access, the youth that you have, you can just use the youth records to be able to do that. Again, I will reiterate, though, the menu button is probably the most typical way to navigate through the system, so to speak. So let's go ahead and do that. And what I want to do is go to the enrollment lens. And this is where, again, you can add a new youth record, work with an existing youth record, or work with all youth records. So I'm just going to go from the bottom up and show you sort of what they do. So if I click on Work with All Youth Records, it'll just give me a list of all of those youth records that I had on my home page originally. So here they are. I can select them here and just go to one and start working in that record. So that's a great way to do it. Go back to home for a second. Oh, good, it came back up. So something weird must have happened with it for a second. It did generate back the youth records that I wanted to see. So that's wonderful. I do want this to kind of go down. There we go. Okay. So you can see, again, I could click here, or I could do what I just did from the Home tab. So let's say I want to work with an existing youth record, but let's say I have 300 records here, and I don't want to have to scroll through all the numbers. I can work with existing youth, and then this pop-up comes up where I can do their last name, first name, search by their WRAP ID. I can do it starts with this, or it contains a certain piece if I've only remembered their last name, for example, and then search. So that's a nice feature as well that we really like having. Now finally, I'm going to go to the enrollment, and then I'm going to click on the top one, which is Add a New Youth Record, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to test out the system and show you how to do this. So a couple of things to point out on this screen. Last name, first name, you do not have to actually put name. They are required, however, to have information in the fields. So you can see below, WRAP ID will be taken as name if that information isn't provided, and WRAP ID is here. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to not enter names here. I'm going to select some of the other things, and then I'm going to pretend accidentally to leave this blank, okay? That's what we're going to do. We're just going to say, okay, great, this person, here's this information. Additionally, though, if you don't want to track date of birth, you can just put 000, which I'll probably end up doing, but you can also navigate through this new calendar here, which is really nice, and you just select the year that way, the date, whatever. Or you can just say, and if you don't want to keep track of that date of birth in here, you can just leave the zeros. But again, these fields have to have something. It doesn't have to actually be a date of birth or a name, but it has to have something. Street number, phone number, that information you don't add into this if you want to track something, but you certainly don't have to. You can leave it blank, as well as Medicaid number and case number. You may recall that in Wonders we had about 500 IDs in the system, and you'd always have to enter them a million times. And so we wanted to reduce the number of IDs, which is why we have one ID now, and it's WrapID. So just make it to note of that, and WrapID is equivalent to that family ID you would enter into Wonders. So when you go in here and log in for the first time and you're looking at your data that's been mapped over, you do want to make sure that WrapID is that use and family ID that you would have had for that particular use in Wonders. So, things like that to look for. But again, April and I've done some really extensive testing for this. We feel confident about the data. But nobody knows your data like you do. So, keep an eye out for some of that. But just to reiterate, these IDs for these case numbers and Medicaid numbers, you do not have to enter. You can use blank, but we felt like we wanted to provide a couple of fields in case folks wanted to keep track of other IDs. All right. So now I demo the fact that I didn't enter these fields up here. I left them blank, but I said, oh, okay, I'm going to use the IDs for that, but I forgot to enter the IDs. Here's what happened. And it says, oh, no, first. And you want to look up at the top here quite a bit, because as you're saving things, updating things, in Chrome only, though, so which is why we recommend Chrome, you'll get reminders or alerts or what have you up at the top to tell you sort of what's going on. Either something saved successfully or there's an error. So keep that in mind. What we will do is I'm actually just still going to leave that blank and say, oh, right, I forgot. I didn't want to actually add their names. I want that to be their ID. So I'm going to come over here, pardon me, and I'm going to add WrapID. And so the great thing about the ID as well is it can be numbers, letters. You can even have a period. So if I needed to make this ID something like that's going to be my WrapID for this particular use, then I'm going to click away from this field. You can see it's highlighted, but if I click up, anywhere, click anywhere, it automatically generates that ID, that WrapID, in as the first and last name. So now I feel good about that. I've got all the information in that I want to get in. And typically, this is basic information you're going to have on folks, but you may also get some of this from the demo form, obviously, so keep that in mind. Got to hit save. And it tells me successfully added. Would you like to continue to add other information for this use record? So let's say that you've got 5 other people that you want to enroll into this system, or you want to create their records in the system. You may hit no because you might just want to do what we just did 5 more times for those 5 use. Or you may say, yes, I want to just work with one use only. I'm going to enroll the use, then I'm going to do all the other steps, and then I'm going to enter their data, and then I'm going to enroll another use. You can decide whatever works for you. For this, I'm going to say yes. So it takes me to that use record that was just generated. So you can see here again, a lot of that information obviously transferred right over. First and last name, race, gender, date of birth, that kind of thing. And again, if you forget about the WrapID, you just hover over here and it tells you, oh yeah, that's use and family ID. So this is another way to remember what that's for. Let's see what else is important to note on the screen before we move on. This gray box here actually tells you, okay, this is who's entered it. This is the date that they entered it for the first time. Here's when they would have edited it. And this is where that timestamp really kind of comes. And those kinds of things are sort of throughout the system, so that's really helpful as well. If you're a supervisor, for example, and you're logged in and you can see all of the use, because that's one of your permissions, you would be able to see for each use, if multiple people, you have that you supervise are entering data. So you could see, okay, for, ID 001, it was entered by Johnny. For ID 002, it was entered by Tammy, whatever. So it's nice because you can kind of keep track of who's doing what, which is a nice new way of looking at it. Additionally, I want to draw your attention to the bottom section here that's also great. You can tell that this is not something that I've entered here. I can't actually click here. It's generated from the system in other places. So for example, the primary caregiver field here only comes from the caregiver WIFI. So if you collect the caregiver WIFI and you have their first and last name or whatever you want to use, it could just be, again, the ID, but you put that in the caregiver WIFI form, it'll populate right there. Same for facilitator. If you collect the facilitator WIFI, it'll populate right there. Even though the facilitator name is on the caregiver form, it doesn't pull from that. It only pulls from the facilitator WIFI if you're wanting to get this data right here. So again, caregiver WIFI, facilitator WIFI, that's where that information comes from. All right, and now finally we're at pending for the enrollment status, and this is what I wanted to draw your attention to. So I'd like to think about this in a way where you're thinking of steps. So if you're doing the data entry, if that's sort of your role or one of your roles, these are sort of the steps I recommend. First step, get that youth record in. So we just did that, and we see here that all that information looks accurate and correct, and we like what we're seeing. So we completed step 1, got the youth record. Step 2 is enrollment, and we want to change from pending to enrolled. So we're going to go right down here to the bottom, green button. And you'll see that it says pending and all this information, yada, yada. But we want to make them enrolled. So we're going to hit Add Enrollment Status. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. You can actually change a couple of things. You can make them enrolled. You could also make them discharged later if they've left services. So, if that's something you want to start tracking in the system, it's much easier to do now than it was in 1 year. You certainly don't have to. You can leave all of your youth enrolled. It won't affect or impact your reporting at all. It really will not matter, as well as if you change them to discharge, it will not impact their report. I'm going to go ahead and hit enroll, and you can choose, whatever date makes sense. I'm going to select today's date. And once you do that, you actually can select, like if you have multiple subsites, you have a drop-down list here, and you can select what subsite that youth is connected to. I'm going to select this one first and hit Save. And it tells me that was saved successfully. Great. I see that I have another line here. And again, some of those administrators are going to be able to delete if you need a reason. Again, you may choose that some other folks won't have those permissions. So that's up to you. I'm going to close. So we've just done step 2. And we're ready to move on to the 3rd step. So again, you've got your new youth record all in there. You change that youth to enrolled. Step 3 is actually clicking on this WrapTrack tab. So basically, when you're in your youth tab here, because you can see there's an assessment, when you're in your youth tab, demographics and WrapTrack are really what you're going to be pulling from the WIFI demo form. So if you have your WIFI demo form in front of you, you're going to use that to add this demographics page and this WrapTrack page. And it's basically like this is the front page with a little less information, but this is the front page and this is the back page. So think of it that way. So you might note that these are your school questions that are on the back page of that WIFI demo form. How many days have you been in the last 30 days? school in the last 30 days, which grade. So if I hit yes and I selected, whatever grade it was, I would just hit save. Now, if it was no, you'll note that the system only brings the next question up if it's appropriate for the response that you've selected. And that goes throughout the system. You'll note that throughout WrapTrack. So you won't see these unless you've selected the answer or the response that brings up that generated. So I will leave this as no, and I'm just going to say, you can type anything, whatever it is. I'm going to select other because I want to show you guys that now you can actually type in. So that's that. I'm just going to these are all correct. It says great, you saved it, wonderful. I feel confident about all this data. I've got my WrapTrack. I've just finished step 3. Step 4, final piece for data entry for youth records. Okay. Go to the assessment tab. You can see we don't have any assessments currently for this youth. I'm going to click add. Now, in this list, again, KTown, you're only going to see the WIFI, and then Ocean Partnership, you're going to have. So nobody's going to see unless that's something that you want to sign up for. April and I will give you guys access to that. I want to go ahead.
Ashka, I just wanted to mention, is anybody else getting really bad feedback? Because it sounds like somebody not muted and it's getting really hard to understand.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see. I worry about this one computer microphone. Let's see. Does that help at all?
So far?
Okay. And I may be mispronouncing this word name if I am. Is it Latizi? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. But I've muted your microphone because I think there's some feedback. So if you do have any questions, if you could actually just type in the message down here, and then I'll unmute you. I'll just sorry, one second. So this will pop up. Just type in the message down there in the chat box, and I'll make a note of it, and then unmute your microphone because I do think that might have been the one we're getting a little feedback on. Okay, so let me know if that doesn't help at all, and then I can mute everyone, and we'll do the same thing, but sounds like that might have helped. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. So I want to go ahead and I want to just do like a quick facilitator form and then a TOM form so folks can see that difference. So let's do the TOM form first. Okay. So you'll see that even when I expand this, it doesn't necessarily expand the entire screen, and that's one of the things that we would have liked to change, but this particular box has to remain this size for programming. So that's just something to note. You will kind of have to scroll through some of the pages, so just keep that in mind. A couple of things also about the TOM, and again, Ocean Partnership, this is directed to you guys, but we did note that accidentally the facilitator ID and the observer ID were left off of this form. We're working with our programmers to get them added, but I do want to make note of that. So these will be added here, but they're not currently listed at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick data entry. Okay, so basically that's the information that you're just adding at the top there, and then you're literally just going to be going down, down the list or whatever. You can tab through and type notes if that seems appropriate, or you can just, say, add all the numbers and leave out any notes if that seems what makes sense to you guys. But basically that's what you're going to do. And this goes for the WIFI and the TOM, this piece of information that I'm about to tell you. So what you want to do is you actually want to get through all of the tabs before you hit save. Here's why. For those folks that only can do the data entry piece. You may recall from Wonders that once you save something, you then could not edit it. So you want to make sure that you go through this whole thing before you save anywhere along the way so that you don't accidentally lock yourself out of it. Additionally, the second piece of information to note is, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to go to Part 1, and I'm going to just tab, and I'm just going to enter stuff, and whatever it is. And then I'm purposely going to leave that question 2D blank. And that seems like, it shouldn't happen. In the past in Wonders, you weren't able to move to the next section, the next question, even without answering the previous one. It is, unfortunately, an error that we caught, and we are going to have the programmers, again, update this piece for the Wi-Fi and the TOM. For whatever reason, it's not an issue for the Wi-Fi EZ. They were able to program it in, but they might have missed the memo on the Wi-Fi and the TOM. So we're working with them to get that fixed, but until then, please be extra vigilant when you're adding this data in to make sure that it all gets entered in, because you don't necessarily want to have all of this entered and then go back and realize that you've missed something. But for this, I'm just going to continue to move forward, and this takes a solid minute to go through the TOM here. Because there's quite a few parts, and obviously, as you will see, there are 2 items for each part up here, and all of their indicators under that. And all of these have remained the same. Nothing's changed. So the questions and the answers and all of that are the same. So this should all be very easy in terms of getting used to the way that this flows. And again, if I wanted to do this by the drop-down and select something else, I could do that as well. Okay, so now I'm on the last one. And I'm just going to, whatever, put with the notes. And then I'm going to put the end time. I'm going to say that this took 50 minutes. And now I'm going to hit save. So I've gotten to the end. I filled out everything I possibly could. And again, for those of you that don't have the ability to go back and edit, I would really recommend taking this time until you really get familiar with the system to just go back through and say, okay, did I actually add all of these in? Did I really select all? Or did I miss one? So that's just, you can take the time because you've got the time to really go back and play with it. It allows you to do that. You're not going to be worried about getting kicked out of the system or logged out of the system before you complete a TOM data entry. So, so just take advantage of that. And now I'm going to hit save. And it says, great, everything was saved successfully. Wonderful. I'm going to close out of it. And there it is. That's the TOM has been listed right there, so everything is completely fine. Now I am going to add a Wi-Fi form. Same kind of thing. Again, I could write anything in here, and this will not be generated on that home page. Only because I'm in the facilitator form will the facilitator's name be generated on that home page. So I'm going to list this out as Betty. And let's say I interviewed this facilitator on Monday. I can change this date. That's completely fine. I'm going to leave it for today because we've just enrolled this youth, and I don't want the system to say, wait a minute, how did you interview without being enrolled? But so just make a note of that. And we're just going to say that we did this at 6 p.m., same thing, 6 months, whatever you put here is fine. I'm going to say we did it over the phone. And you can choose, again, here's a great example. So if I click on, I'm sorry, I guess it's in the caregiver, but in the caregiver version, when you click, when you select something other than birth parent, then there's the additional questions where it asks you, okay, what's your permanency plan, et cetera. So I forgot that's not in the facilitator form, apologies. So you would select the relationship, who has legal custody, what's happening here, just kind of basically, whatever, just entering not real data here, but stuff to show you. And then does the youth have a wraparound team? If I select no, I don't move any further, you can see. But if I select yes, I move down into who's actually on the team. So I'm checking, these boxes and saying, okay, these are the people that participate, whatever it is. You can also write in things if there are not options. You will note, though, that youth support partner or advocate was added to this list. This is the only new addition to the list of options, but again, you can write in whatever makes sense. And again here, now I've finished this facilitator intro, which is sort of like the first page of the facilitator form, essentially. I'm ready to start entering the items. And again, I'm not going to hit save. I'm just going to keep going through these tabs. And again, same thing can happen here. I'm not going to enter this. I'm just going to go to planning. And you can see that I can actually move forward without selecting something. But you want to make sure that you're paying special attention to that. Here's all of our example things. That's great. Whatever it is, we'll just continue to select this way for right now. Great. Moving on to, how about that? Okay, well that's unusual because we didn't think that the system was doing that. I don't think it is for the caregiver form actually, but how funny is that? It is doing this for the facilitator form. Okay, I guess we just never tested it in that way before. But so I guess if you select 2, it wants you to actually put. Let's see if it'll let me move on now. Yes. Okay. Let's see if it puts it does 1. Let's see. Let's delete 1. Or let's leave 2. Let's see what it says. Okay. Well. So it's not as smart as I thought it was. If you select 1, you can still have 2 things here. Let's see about probably if we select 0, it'll probably do the same. Yeah. Okay. So it's only if you select 2 does it force you to actually write in 2 things. But that's interesting. Good to know. And I'm hoping it does that for this as well. So let's try it. I'm just going to leave them blank for right now just to see what happens. Yeah, okay, great. Well, for the facilitator, that part was fixed, I guess. So I'm just going to make a note of that. 2, 5, and 3, 3. Okay. So at least for a portion of it, this question is correct. So if you select 2, you actually have to write in these 2 responses, which mimics wonders. So that shouldn't be too different. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and finish up this data entry. And then I'm finally at the last page, and I'll just, whatever for the feedback. If there are any other observations, I'm going to say that this took 15 minutes to complete. And now I'm going to hit save at the end. And it says, great, save successfully. You'll also know that because it's put in the appropriate amount of minutes for the length of the interview. So I feel confident about all this data, and I'm going to close it. And here we go. Here's that information now showing up. And again, if you have the ability or the privileges to be able to do that, you can hit edit, or you could delete these even if that seemed appropriate, but probably not appropriate. I'm going to go back to the Use tab because I just want to show you how that works. So see, we put in something for primary caregiver on the facilitator form, but it doesn't generate from there. It doesn't pull from that location. However, it did pull Betty because we put Betty in for the facilitator form. So hopefully all of that makes sense. This is, really the steps it takes to be able to enter this data and to get it all in. Do folks have questions now at this point? Okay. Sounds like maybe not. And, again, if anybody needs to, if your phone's muted or if you can't hear for whatever reason, just type in the chat box. But everyone's so quiet, so I hope you're all still there. Okay. I'm going to log us out. And I want to show you the reports and exports. Oops. So you go to your WrapTrack tab, Reports and Data Export, and I'm just going to hit Report. And I'm going to look at only the WIFI stuff because I'm actually in a live site that only has WIFI data. Again, I want to reiterate for those who use the TOM and Ocean Partnership, same type of thing. What I'm showing you right now for the WIFI, it's the same for the TOM. So, don't get worried about that. What I want to do is just go ahead. I'm just going to click on the first report, okay? And then for this particular configuration or organization, I know that they have a couple subsites. So I want to pull all those. I want to look at all the organizations. And you can see they've got these two. It's already checked them for me. I'm going to hit continue. I can select by a range of dates if I'd like. Or I can pull all data. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to pull the mean. You should recognize this again, first assessment, most recent assessment, or mean. This is the same, the way that this sort of is generated from the way it is in, or was in Wonders, excuse me. The difference being right here, this keep qualification checkbox. And I'm going to hit that right now. And what this does is allows you to keep these qualifications that we just entered for all 10 reports, for example. So if I hit continue, it'll generate my one report that I wanted to look at, the first one. Then I'll show you some neat features on this, some new features, and then I'll go to another report, and I'll show you where it says, oh, yeah, okay, did you want to actually save those qualifications, or are you ready to move on to something else? Alrighty. Okay, so again, screen's kind of tiny here. We really recommend you pushing it into another file, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But before we get there, I just want to draw your attention to a few things. This toolbar at the top is helpful because if you are just going to look at it because you just need to quick reference something, like you just needed to look at how many facilitator interviews were done here, and that's all you needed. You scroll through here, but you may also have reports that have multiple pages, so be aware of that because you may need to select this button here for next page. Additionally, let's say someone's in here and you want to pull a report, but someone's entering data. What you might want to do is actually click refresh because if they're entering data, you can actually pull down the live information that was just entered before you actually run this. So you would want to just click refresh, and it'll take a minute, and then it just refreshes. So obviously that's not actually happening right now, but it did refresh. There's no data to refresh it, but it did. All right, and then you can see it just pulled down. This is our configuration that we're looking at, or organization, or business. Those are the things we used to call it in Wonders, and now we call it configuration. This is the report I'm looking at. This is the title. I'm looking at all of the organizations, the mean value, not a date range. I selected all of the data, and then here's the data I'm pulling in. All right, so here's the great thing about the new exporting out of these reports. You can actually push them into Word, into Excel, or into a PDF, which is a new option, PDF. So again, you push into Word, and if there's a report that has like a graph or a figure, and you want to use that in one of your own local reports, you can do that. So you might want to push it into Excel or Word to be able to get that graph, copy it, and put it into your own report or something. Or you can just do PDF, which is what I'm going to do right here. And I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the report. It actually, when I put it into a PDF, it pushes it to 2 pages. It gets a little bit longer. But this information, looks clean. It's easy to read. Basically the same type of stuff that we had, again, in Wonders, but just visually a little nicer. And this, you might just be saving these and keeping a copy or record of them. You might be needing to send these to folks in terms of reporting requirements or pulling them for team meetings, whatever works for you. But there's that. All right, so I want to close this, and now I want to show you what will happen if I want to select another report. I'm going to click on the Fidelity report. And this is exactly what will come up now as you go through these reports if you want to generate that same qualifications that we just had for all reports. So I'm going to hit yes, because I do want to keep those existing qualifications. And here we go. So this is this Fidelity report. I just want to scroll down because you can see here we go. We've got these graphs, and this is what I was talking about. If you push this into Word, you can actually copy and paste this and put it into another document. or your own report. Again, here's the example where, if we have more than one page on this, you're going to need to navigate that way or just push it into an export of some sort. Again, here's what we're looking at. You can tell that this is a combined report because it has sections, 7A. So what I'll do is I'll draw your attention to the very, very top. So those reports that have been combined will now have the ability to look at different sections this way. So you go to the top and you click on the drop-down. So in this, I can look at fidelity by principal, scores by principal and respondent, just by phase. I'm going to click on principal and respondent because I want to show you one example again. So if you click on this, another line will show up, and now I can actually choose, okay, for this report by principal and respondent, I can even say, okay, well, I want, certain types of respondents. I'm going to remove youth and team member from here and just keep caregiver and facilitator because that's all this particular group uses. They do not interview youth or team members. So I'm like, okay, got all the things I'm looking for, facilitator and caregiver for this particular report, hit show. And that report will generate, and you can see I've got my graph with my information, and my national means are next to it, so it's all there. All right, and these guidelines are the same for the TOM, same type of thing. You click on it, you can keep the qualifications, you can choose to just look at one. It's whatever is up to you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the export. Do folks have questions about the reporting? Can everyone even still hear me okay?
We're good here at KTown.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to hear.
The feedback has stopped, and we appreciate that.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad to hear it. Wonderful. Okay, so let's just go ahead and keep moving forward with the export section. Again, this is the section that looks a little bit different, and we did note that there is one thing, again, missing from this piece, and again, working on that with our programmers. So one thing that is missing that I'm just going to put out front there is the ability to generate exports by those different sort of communities or subsites. So we're going to make sure that that gets added here so that you can actually just, you can run reports by the actual use of the forms or what have you, but that you can also, export them via, a subsite or what have you. So keep in mind that that is actually going to be happening soon. Okay, so you can do this by single use, or you can actually choose multiple use, and I'm going to choose multiple use. So you first select what kind of use you're going to be pulling, then you select the form, and I'm going to go ahead and say, for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to use the facilitator form because I know that they have a lot of them. And it gives me a list of all the use here with facilitator forms. And then I can say, okay, great, right here, if I want to select all of those kids, I'll just do that, or I can select none, or I can select all, scroll down, and choose certain ones to remove. I'm going to do that because we work with this configuration of this community, and we have added these test views here. So I'm just going to make sure that they're not in my data, raw data export. If I wanted to even remove some of those views, I could do it. It's really up to you as to how you want to do that. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom to the filter data section. And here at content is where I'm going to choose whether or not I want to look at this with numeric values only, text values, or both. Probably because you're pushing this most likely into Excel and you're doing that for additional data analyses, you may only need the numeric values. I'm going to do both for our example today. You can also do a comma-separated value, but I'm going to do the spreadsheet. And then finally, your scope. You can choose to do all by the quarter or the year, the month, specific date ranges. Now, I will say that probably most folks might want to pull things via specific dates because you might have certain reporting requirements, for the fiscal year or whatever it may be. I'm going to hit that, and as soon as I do, you'll note that these gray boxes open up. So here we go. And then I'm just going to randomly here choose, I'm just going to say, and it's just alerting me to the fact that this is not an error, but it's alerting me to the fact that I need to have a date that follows August 8th, August 2nd, excuse me, it can't be prior to that. So that's all that's saying. And I'm going to say just through, a random time here. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, the date range, but that's okay. And then finally, if you wanted to remove any identifying information, so you wanted to have this export and you wanted to bring it again to a meeting or something, or to send it to somebody, you would maybe want to remove that identifying information. Just click that checkbox. I am not going to do that because we are in, again, a configuration where we don't have any identifying information, so there is not a fear of that. And then I'm going to hit Preview Output. You can see that what is generated, again, is a smaller box, so it's hard to see this, and visually this is not as appealing, but this is really not intended to be viewed this way. It's the stepping stone to allow you to then choose, okay, do I want to now save that to Excel, or do I want to maybe email it? I'm not going to actually email it, but I'm going to click on this to show you what it looks like. So basically, here you are. Here's your information as the user. You can put in whoever you want to send this to, the subject line. Here's the actual attachment there. You type in, whatever the message is, and then you hit send. I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to show you that you could, and we really like that new feature. What I'm actually going to do now is actually hit save. Here we go. And it pulls it again because it's in Chrome. It pulls it into like a different page over here, but I'm just going to hit that and open it up. It'll take a second. And here's my export of that information, and it just is a little bit cleaner in terms of how it looks. We really like that information. You can still manipulate everything, obviously. This username would not have been in here had we removed identifying information. Tracks the positive, negative feedback. One thing I want to point out, it's going to be the same for the Tom, again, but I'm not able to show you the Tom export. But again, same type of thing. The value labels look a little bit different than they did in Wonders. And what we're going to be doing is actually sending you guys a user manual as well as a data dictionary. So it's not going to send it today. We don't have it finished just yet, but we will be sending it in the near future. And it will include things that will help, navigate some of these value labels a little bit easier. However, if you look at it, they're really sort of intuitive to what you would think they would be anyways. Just, obviously it's different than the way we're used to looking at them. So for example, you can see here I have EQ1_N. And essentially what that is, because we're looking at the WIFI again as a reminder, is that that's engagement question 1, the numeric value. Engagement question 1, the text value. So you can see that's what we've got going on here. And again, you may not want these text columns because they might not really be relevant to what you're needing to look at the raw data for. Additionally, a couple other things to point out here is that obviously engagement question 1 is question 1.1. If you then look over at this column over here, you get to the planning phase. Planning phase question 1 is question 2.1. So it really, it makes logistical sense. It's just something to get used to because it is different than what it was in Wonder. So, just something to note. All right, so let's move away from this. Any questions about exporting? Great, okay, it doesn't sound like it. I'm going to close out of that. And that's basically the demo. That is it. I mean, you've seen how to enroll a use, how to get the data entered, how to run reports, how to do exports. A lot of this is pretty similar, but just an upgraded way to do it. Visually it may take a little time to get used to, but all the same things are here, and you can do some of the same exact things or better. So we really like the way it's working out. Again, it's still a new system, and we're working out some of these little kinks that I mentioned along the way. But if you see any other things, we really do want you to alert us to that. So I'm going to log out of this and go ahead and bring this PowerPoint back. So here's where we want to talk about some of that data mapping and just reviewing that. Pardon me. So what we want to do is before you actually enter any new data, we just want you to do some really quick spot checks. of your current data. And again, we've been talking about this. April and I've tested it, but like we said, nobody knows your data like you do. So just hop in there, take a look at do you have the correct forms for each use? Does the name and ID match up with your date of birth? What have you? Handful of use, a percentage of your use, and that would be completely fine and appropriate. Once you feel confident that that looks good, then go ahead and start entering new data. You can even look at the reporting and exporting features, but make sure not to compare them to what was in Wonders, because again, Wonders is having some errors, especially at the end. And what else on this slide? The Wonder staging site that is listed here is actually not currently working. We were trying to make this site work for folks because we were hoping that this would be a quick way for folks to just be able to compare what was in Wonders to what is now in WrapTrack. However, when we had our wrapinfo.org problem, this site became inactive. So I should have updated that as well. Apology for that, but just ignore that same section there. Next slide. A couple things to remember. If your demographics forms were not filled out, you may not have every use transferred. So that's something to note, as well as, again, those report totals might not actually match compared to what was in Wonders at the end. And then finally, if you're missing the ability to access something, or if you think you should be able to do one thing or a feature in WrapTrack that you used to be able to do in Wonders but you can't, contact your, maybe your local head first, your configuration admin, or if they don't know, they can contact April or myself. So we'll try to get everyone set up there. All right, I think that is everything. And finally, we'll just talk about the time frame that we're hoping to get this back by. We'd really want to get you your feedback by March 10th at the latest. So if you do have any errors, or you need to just report, an update that you'd like to see happen, something like that, I'm going to show you the file that you're going to use in order to do that. But we like all of that by March 10th. Obviously, sooner is also great. So let's get out of here and open that file. So you're going to use these gray columns only when entering this feedback. So you'll have your ability to indicate where you were in the system, and that's this first column here. You can say, I was in the Wi-Fi forms, or I was looking at TOM exports. You can even say specific forms, or you were looking at the demographics information. But please let us know where you were in the system when an error or you saw something that you needed to report occurred. You would also make sure to include your name and organization. So that would be something important to jot down so we know who saw the issue. Also, your login and your password, again, we've said that a bunch now, so just make sure to include that. Finally, it's indicated in this box here, but you're really going to need to indicate what kind of issue you saw. So for example, a bug, and you can see here, you're not able to function in the system if there's a bug present. And that might be something like, for example, when I hit export in the TOM export, it gives me an error message. So, you can't move forward because of this particular bug. That would be how you would list an error like that. There could be another error, though, where you are able to continue moving forward in the system, but it's still an issue and we want to fix it. For example, wraparound was misspelled. We want to make sure to get that corrected, but it's not hindering you or prohibiting you from moving forward with data entry. You're able to still function as normal. And we would call an error like that an edit. And then last, we would have a new development option. So for example, let's say you've got a great new idea, and it was something that you were thinking about in Wonders, and you realized it hasn't gotten included in WrapTrack, or you might not have been vocal about it previously. We are really accepting that feedback now. So if you have something that you'd like to see in Wonders, WrapTrack. That was a misstep there, but if you have something you'd like to see in WrapTrack, please include it in this form here and just list it as new development. And then obviously we want you to describe sort of what is going on, what it is, if it's an error, and then what you like to see changed about it. And obviously here's a perfect example. This is spelled, we want it to be spelled correctly. very simple stuff. So, but finally, the last piece that you will want to include for these lines, and you can really make them as small as you can to get them like lined up with the appropriate thing, would be screenshots of sort of what's going on, where you were, where you saw the error, because our programmers can, obviously, like I just did, expand these screenshots, make them as big as they need to be able to see what's actually happening. It would be extremely helpful for you guys to include these screenshots in with this feedback feedback spreadsheet, because that really helps our programmers, as we mentioned. And then, just make sure that you, as you can see here, remove these examples and then just complete this form and send it back when you're ready. And you can send it to WrapEval, just send it to me directly, whatever works. And let me know, though, if you don't have any feedback to provide, because I don't want to, sit around and look for something that may not be arriving. So if you feel confident with the data that you have, just give us a quick email, let us know that everything's great, and you're going to start entering new data. So that's completely fine. And honestly, I hope that happens, because we have had quite a few people come in, and I would say maybe 4 of the 20 groups so far have seen things that they needed to bring up with us. So it's not a lot. So just let us know what's going on in there. All right, and that is now officially it. So. Questions, concerns, I'm going to go ahead and unmute for the microphone that was muted. Anything that folks need to address now, let's get that out there.
Patty, this is Heather Wallace. You said that we should let you know at the end about who's going to need what level of permissions and that sort of thing. And so I just wanted to give you that information before I hopped off the phone.
Are you going to be probably the local, like local lead organization? Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is I'll make sure that you are the community, the configuration admin.
Okay, yeah, because I'm going to need to export data. We have a central server that we put things into, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. And thank you for a great training. I'm going to hop off the phone and let my team finish up with whatever questions they have with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, anybody else?
This is Neshka from KTown as well. I had a question where I was cleaning the data beforehand when we exported files. Some of the things were out of order, the skip pattern seemed to be messed up. Is there a way I can check that it transferred correctly into WrapTrack without having to double check it against the hard copies or anything like that?
Right. Well, we've done that. So actually, the reports and the exports, we really don't have to check for any errors. It's really did the data map over correctly. So when you go in and you play around with the exports and reports, really just doing that for your own benefit, familiar with it. All of those errors that were existing previously are no longer existing. So that's excellent. That we've kind of gotten that under control. So, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. But what you'll notice is those skip patterns or whatever errors were previously are fixed. So shouldn't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, it sounds like we are finally ready to wrap it up for today. Ocean Partnership. Do you guys have your local admin that you will need to have as our configuration admin? And they might have stepped off the line. So we will deal with that later. So, guys, for